Today we're going to talk about how to get started with a low-carb intermittent fasting lifestyle. The most common reason why patients come to us is with help with a low-carb diet, with help with fasting, and our job is to guide them in the kind of best and safest way possible. And we have a pretty good clinical experience with how we like to progress people through their lifestyle change. And the first place we start, our blueprint, so to speak, the first place we start is determining what are the biggest barriers to somebody making a lifestyle change stick, right? Maybe it's their workplace environment is a trigger. You know, the coffee room, the break room has tons of pastries. Maybe at home, after they put the kids to sleep, they're used to sitting down on the couch and, you know, relaxing with some snacks. Right? Maybe they see their kids, leftovers and just tend to be triggered by them. Maybe when they go to family's house, that social cue to eat, right, triggers them, and that's one of their vulnerabilities. So our first place we start is assessing what are the vulnerabilities to this person being able to make this behavior change stick. Right? Most people coming to us want to eat low carb, have amazing willpower. They're able to fast sometimes up to a week. We've heard people fast. And people have maintained a diet for a long, long time. Right? But what do they tell us? It all kind of falls apart. And they all go back to kind of their old habits. So our job is not to tell people to eat low carb or tell people to intermittent fast. Our job is to enable you to put in systems into your life to make that lifestyle change possible, right? And the first place we start is determining what are the risks to that lifestyle. What are the problem foods? What are the foods you can't say no to when you see them? Whether it's chocolate, chips, cookies, pizza, what are they? What are the foods you actually struggle with, right? We also ask, where are the difficult locations? Maybe it's work. Maybe it's the restaurants you go to. They always bring bread out onto the table. They always offer you dessert. So where are those problem locations that really trip you up in maintaining your lifestyle? And, you know, what are the problem situations? Maybe it's a birthday party. I remember, you know, I would take my kids to birthday parties and the pizza and the cupcakes would always throw me off, right? So what do we do in those vulnerable times and places? And maybe it's a vulnerable person, somebody who's triggering you in your life. Maybe your spouse doesn't have the same appetite issues you do, and they have a bunch of cookies in the home and you always kind of lose control with them. So our job when we see you on day one will be, hey, what are those problem foods? What are those problem people, those problem situations, the problem locations? And we want to take those, and myself and my coaches will work with you, okay, to figure out solutions to each one of these. Because there's no sense in starting a plan, okay, without preparing for these vulnerabilities. And the first part of our plan, the first part of our blueprint is just eat low carb. If you tell me you want to do low carb and you want to do intermittent fasting and you want to lose weight, well, our first goal is stabilize that blood sugar. Learn to eat low carb. When you're hungry, learn what foods that are available to you that are low carb, right? So that you aren't restricting and then binging on high carby foods and being endlessly hungry. So the first step is don't worry about weight loss. Don't focus on weight loss. Just focus on, can you advocate for yourself with a low carb diet? Can you maintain this diet in the most difficult circumstances, right? So that's the first step. Eat low carb. Don't worry about weight loss. And once that blood sugar is nice and flat, and once several months pass by, what happens is the insulin level drops down, the ketone levels go up, and those ketone levels have a very active effect on the brain. Okay, they may reduce seizures, they may reduce migraines, they definitely reduce appetite. And so what happens a month into being on a low-carb diet is the appetite inhibits. And it's that time where we promote weight loss. When somebody reports that their hunger is controlled. If I get you to just eat less, that has a side effect. And that side effect is hunger. So if I don't teach you how to advocate for your hunger in a way that doesn't make you more hungry, I'm setting you up to fail. So if I focus on calories and weight loss, I know the result. It's going to be, you're going to be hungry, and you're not going to have the tools in place to manage your hunger. So instead, let's just focus on lowering the carbs. And let's wait for those ketones to mount up. Let's wait for that blood sugar to get nice and stable. And then when you tell me, hey, your hunger is down, then we'll focus on weight loss. And the way we focus on weight loss is typically intermittent fasting. So step one, our first lever, is just lower the carbs, right? Step two is when the hunger is suppressed, begin to intermittent fast. And the way we start intermittent fasting is very simple. Just delay your first meal. If you're not hungry in the morning, you don't need to eat. If you're not hungry at lunch, you can delay the lunch until you are hungry. So that's the first place we start. But we don't typically move into intermittent fasting until we know that somebody can confidently eat low carb, advocate for themselves with low carb eating in the most difficult circumstances, and when they report their hunger is decreased. Right? That is the first part of our blueprint. And then we'll go on to focus on other levers after low carb eating and intermittent fasting. And we'll talk about more of those as time goes on. We will address the fats that we add to food, right, that may make us eat more. So people hear that message and they say, oh, Tro is saying go low fat. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying at some point we may address the added fats. And just to give you a little insight into how that plays out, right? Just imagine, for example, tuna fish, okay? If I gave you plain, dry tuna fish, how much do you eat? Not much at all. Maybe great for your weight loss, but what happens? Because you didn't eat enough, what's going to happen a couple hours later when you're staring at pizza? You're going to be starving. You're probably going to eat the pizza. Well, what happens now if we put just enough, avocado oil mayo in there, and we put just enough mustard or just enough peppers and onions and it tastes good? Well, now maybe you eat 2 cans and you're much more full. You ate enough. And an hour later when you're staring at pizza, you're like, no, I'm pretty full. Don't really need that. Right? So we had just enough fat to make it satiating, enjoyable. And certainly, what else could I do? I can add a lot of added fat. I can take that tuna, put in a ton of avocado oil, mayo. I can put slices of cheese melted on top, put a nice almond flour, buttery bread, right? And then slice up some avocado. And how much do you eat? Probably still 2 cans, plus all those things I added. So now we added fat. And did you enjoy your food? Absolutely you did. Okay? And were you full after the end of it? Absolutely you were. And would you reach for that pizza an hour later? Probably not. But were you on your way to working on your weight loss goals? Maybe not. Maybe not. Maybe you're losing tons of weight, and that's fine to add all that fat. But maybe your weight loss has stalled off a bit. And so maybe we'll look at lowering that added fat in the future. But we do not start with low fat because your body can't even metabolize fat, right? Your free fatty oxidation is so low when you're first starting a low carb diet. Your ketones are so low, your appetite suppression is non-existent. And you desperately want to lose weight. So you're trying to eat 1 or 2 eggs for breakfast when your body really needs 4 or 5. Or you're trying to be okay with 1 hamburger patty, right? When before you'd pull up to Wendy's or McDonald's and order 2 cheeseburgers, French fries, and a milkshake. You took away all the bread, you took away all the fries, and now you think 1 or 2 hamburger patties is going to cut it? Probably not. So the first lever is just eat low carb. And sometimes we even tell people eat 2 or 3 times, or at least make 2 or 3 times what you think is normal. Because in the beginning, you're going to be hungry. Your blood sugar is going to be falling down. Okay? Your insulin levels are still high. Your ketone levels are non-existent. And you're going to be hungry. So don't focus on weight loss. As you remain low carb, your appetite will inhibit. And then we'll push you into intermittent fasting and talk to you about how to start that, what you need to know before you begin intermittent fasting. And then once you're an expert at intermittent fasting and you're losing weight, and let's say in the future things get a little slow and you want to push it a next step, we'll address then the added fats. And then let's say you've even addressed the added fats and you're doing pretty good. You're having just the right amount of that Goldilocks lever. Then we'll talk about exercise. So we have a plan in the way we like to progress people through their lifestyle. And the first place we start is just eat low carb, right? Then we'll help you determine when you should move to intermittent fasting, when you should move to addressing added fats, and when you should move to exercise. It's long and slow. I know that weight loss is a lifelong issue for many of you, and you want to just get started. And I promise you, the place to start is assessing your problem foods, your problem people, your problem places, your problem situations, and figuring out how to deal with those vulnerabilities and learning to advocate for your appetite with low-carb foods, with satiating foods, so that when you need it, you know how to eat low-carb, and then when you're not hungry, you know how to fast.